All right, so let's talk Diddy. So right now, as you all know, Cassie is testifying right now in court. I'm going to give you guys the exact updates on what's taking place right now, what her testimony is, how things are going. But for those of you who are not aware, Diddy is on trial for trafficking, racketeering, as well as transportation for purposes of I can't say the word. So, so he's on trial. Is facing it looks like three different charges here, and Cassie has taken a stand. This is breaking news. Breaking news. Cassie has taken a stand, and I'm going to recount everything that she's saying. We're getting like some text updates that are coming out the courtroom on what her testimony is. And this is I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This is probably it's something. It's a lot of things that she's saying is not. It's not like we didn't know these things were taking place, so to speak. I mean, we kind of knew most of what she is, has said that was done. But I would say one thing: if this is the prosecution's best argument or key witness, I think Diddy stands a great chance. Because although her stuff is graphic, it is graphic. But understand exactly what the case is involving. This case is involving trafficking, okay? SEX trafficking, racketeering, and transportation for purposes of, I can't use the word, the P word, right? So this is what she's basically alluding to in her testimony. So she first asked, they first asked her, how was her relationship? How did her relationship actually begin? And she said that her relationship began with, Cassie traced the start of her romantic relationship with Combs back to a trip in Miami a few months after her 21st birthday. It was their first time they had SEX, and the first time she initially took the DRUG. It starts with the E word. And I have to use a lot of these words because I don't want to get banned for using these words. So after that trip, we were together. She said, I became one of his girlfriends after that trip. Mind you, she was 21 years old at this time. She was above age. At that time, she believed she was in a monogamous relationship, reflecting, I can't be naive enough, describing how she was unaware of the reality, right? And so now she went back and she stated that she met Combs when she was 19. So apparently their relationship did not kick off until she was about 21. So around her 21st birthday, that's when Combs unexpectedly kissed her in a hotel suite, leaving her confused and emotionally shaken. This is her testimony. This is what she said. The coercion and exploitation part she alluded to, she said Combs introduced her to SES acts she was uncomfortable with, including ORAL SEX early in their relationship. She said that he made her feel crazy for not reciprocating her desires. She was still in a relationship at this time with someone else, and she had limited SEX experience, which made the encounter even more disorienting. Okay. Now, as far as these FREAK offs, these situations, Combs allegedly coerced her into these particular acts with male and female escorts while he watched and directed. These began when she was 22 years old and often included DRUG use, including TASY and alcohol at that time. Cassie described, fear and pressure to participate, complying because she feared violence and wanted to avoid confrontation. So essentially, she said she did all this stuff because she feared confrontation. They started off when she was 21 years old. She started off when she was 21 years old, and she said, I was kissed, he started to do things, and then he coerced her into wanting to do more things. And so she said that she just basically fell in line. Now, I want to say this because a lot of times women say that they went through with these certain things because it was like because their career, they needed some way to progress their career. Cassie is not alluding to that. Cassie is essentially saying that, I was young when this stuff happened. He kissed me. We started becoming boyfriend, girlfriend, even though she was already in a relationship, yada, yada, yada. Now, I will preference and say that yesterday's testimony by one of the male escorts had stated that she was the one that called it. Now, mind you, this male escort is on the prosecution's witness. This is their witness. This is not the defense witness. The prosecution's witness said that the male escort said that Cassie would call him. And they would want to have these particular acts done. And it was one time where she wanted him. Cassie wanted the male escort to release himself in her. And so this was not something that Diddy had told him that he wanted him to do. This is something that by his testimony, he said that she wanted him to do that. Now, mind you, again, this was his testimony. This is the prosecution's witness. So I'm gonna just go on. So the physical abuse part, right? The physical abuse, basically, she described multiple violent episodes where he kicked her, dragged her, stumped her. Again, this is nothing more than what we already saw in the video. So she didn't really elaborate on the physical abuse side. She reported suffering visible injuries, black eye, knots on her head, and bruises. And that's really it, y'all. But I would say she's still testifying right now. So hopefully more information is going to come out about this. But I would just say this. If this is the strongest witness that the prosecution has, unless they have something in their back pocket that they're still going to use, I'll be very surprised. I will say that the prosecution did opening remarks with the fact that Diddy is larger than life. Cassie alluded to this as well in her testimony. He's larger than life. And, this was not what she expected when she first got into the relationship. However, it morphed into this whole organized thing that she did not want to take part in. The defense side is essentially saying, this is something that we're not going to defend his violent acts because they said this is indefensible. We can't defend these acts. However, Cassie had opportunity to walk away, and she never did walk away until recently, until months ago, where she just decided to leave. And she essentially asked Diddy for money as a civil to settle everything, and that's what happened. But they're saying that, listen, we're not going to defend the fact that it actually happened, the violence happened. We're defending whether or not this was racketeering. We're defending whether it was a conspiracy. We are saying that this was something that was all people that took part, all participants wanted to actually be there. And I think that Diddy's defense team came back around and showed that, listen, the male escort is on the prosecution side. And he's saying that Cassie's the one that called him. He's saying that Cassie's the one that wanted him to do certain things to her. Even down to the security. One of the security guards also stated, was again one of the prosecution's witnesses, that I went up there and I told Diddy he's got to cut out all this stuff. This is the hotel incident, by the way. Security said, I went up there and I told him, hey, you got to pay for all this stuff, all this damage that you're doing around the hotel. The guy said he went into the room and Diddy gave him a lot of money. He said that, but the way the defense or the prosecution is trying to, turn that around, they basically trying to say that, so basically Diddy paid you to shut up, to not say anything. But then Diddy's team came back and said, well, no, you told him that he had to pay for it. So he paid you. That's what he did. He paid you and he walked away from the situation. Isn't that what happened? Correct? Guy said yes. And so Cassie also alluded to the fact that she talked about her relocation to LA. Cassie said, she moved to LA because Combs wanted her to be closer to his children, some of whom lived in California. She didn't want to leave New York, but followed him out of love and desire to be near him. She said, I wasn't ready to leave out of New York, but I was in love and I wanted to be near him. Diddy, she also stated that Diddy gifted her a New York City apartment. Combs gifted her an apartment in New York City and paid the rent. He lived nearby and used some of that means to stay close and possibly monitor her. LA apartment access. So she talked about in LA when Combs paid for some of her apartments in LA. She said that Combs paid for some of my apartment in LA. He had his own keys and would never and would enter whenever he wanted, reflecting a lack of personal space and privacy for her. She also then talked about the psychological control and manipulation. She said, constant work demands, like Cassie described experiencing psychological abuse. She said that she always had to be working on something, and Combs was checking in to make sure she was busy. So this goes back to like that whole thing that we all know Diddy to have, like this very controlling. If I'm gonna take care of you, gotta put in that work. So it seems like Diddy was really on her to be active, to work, But then she said that he required her to submit a list of songs she was working on, though many never saw the release. She described the work as busy work and just control over what I was doing every minute of the day. And then she talked a little bit about the surveillance by the staff at the hotel. She said that if she ignored his calls, no, I'm sorry. It's just the security guard at her home. So at the apartment that Diddy was paying for, she talked about the surveillance of the staff. She said if she ignored his calls, Combs would call consistently and sometimes send a security guard or an assistant to her home. She said it was part of their job to keep an eye out on her, adding the sense of surveillance and control. So she's showing again that Diddy was manipulative, keeping her under tight wraps, controlling her. Again, the prosecution is trying to lead to the fact that she was being controlled, she was being held beyond her will. And in addition to that, she had to perform these SES acts that was beyond her control. So a lot of stuff is going on. I will say that there has not been any significant evidence as of yet, and I'm not an attorney, obviously, but it does not appear that the prosecution has a strong enough case to show these three charges. Yes, domestic violence, yes, all day. I think they can find him guilty on that, but this is not what he's on trial for. So Diddy has a strong team. He has like 10 teams. I think he's using the same attorney that was in the Young Thug case. He got Young Thug off in this racketeering situation that he was facing in Atlanta, I believe. Brian Steele. He's using, I think, Michael Jackson's daughter. Well, Michael Jackson's attorney daughter is on Diddy's team. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Diddy has like 10 different high-profile attorneys on his team. So they're doing everything. And don't forget, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. The burden of proof, meaning they have to come with enough evidence to suggest that he's guilty on these three charges, right? They have to show burden of proof. It is the defense team to show and to discredit the evidence that they bring forward. So I'll keep you posted on more information, but this is the latest coming out the courtroom.